Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. The Council of Common Interests has approved the country's first ever water policy. It's also called for a water emergency in the country. All four provinces have promised consolidated efforts to ensure and to deal with the impending water crisis. But what does this entail? What kind of measures do we need to take to tackle this very real impending crisis? Other than the dam issue, we'll also be talking about that. We'll also be talking about climate change. We'll also be talking about the future directions as far as exploring other options is concerned, as far as saving water is concerned, as far as moving towards a solution to this problem is concerned. I have with me Dr. Hassan Abbas Saab, who's a water expert. Thank you for joining us. Shahid Zia Saab, who's also a water expert. Thank you for being with us. And Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed Saab, who's a senior economist. Thank you for your time. Hassan Saab, to start off with you, like I said, it's a very real crisis that confronts the country. Unfortunately, even though we've had this Council of Common Interests initiative, we've had some headway into this issue, it doesn't seem to have sunk in as much as it should have to in Pakistan as far as our issues are concerned. Certainly it's a huge issue. We are an agro-based economy. We we depend on agriculture. We need water, and it's a severe problem. What are some of the measures you think we need to take ASAP?
Okay, thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak some point of view here.
Right.
There are a couple of things here. One, that recently there had been a huge hype in kind of panicky situation about water.
Right.
To some extent, that hype is not as severe as the actual situation is.
Really?
Yes, that's the good news. And second good thing about this hype is that there are things that need to be done, and there are things that need to be done now. Because if we start doing the things now, we will be doing things proactively rather than reactively. So it is time we should take advantage of that hype. We should take advantage of some kind of a national spirit, which is actually emerging by the actions of the Chief Justice when he says, okay, we will have crowdfunding, and every walk of life, people are like contributing to that fund, that we want to build something, we don't want to depend on others. Yes, we can. It's in our hand. We don't have to, take foreign aid, foreign loan, all those things.
Right.
So, given that,
Hassan, to interrupt you for a second, as far as your, you're saying it's not as severe as it people, as
it is being portrayed,
things would have us,
yes,
believe. But the issue is, don't you think that for agriculture-driven economies like us, with our crops, it's becoming very difficult for the farmer to get access to water, particularly, for example, in southern Punjab,
yes,
where even very large, even farmers who have very large land holdings are facing a huge problem.
Yes, I know.
Because it just...
I know that problem is not because of the shortage of water. Okay. That problem is because of the shortage of water management.
Okay.
And why there is shortage of water management is because what we are doing in our agriculture irrigation systems, we are not giving the farmers the system of using that water in efficient way.
Right.
We have given our farmer a system which was invented 10,000 years ago in Mesopotamia.
Right.
And then little bit improved by pharaohs 6,000 years ago.
Right.
And we haven't moved much farther from there. It's flood irrigation.
Okay.
They call it like furrow irrigation or flood irrigation. Those are the systems which are like millennium.
Very antiquated. You're saying it's just an old system.
If you could start doing things at this point in time, because we have enough water. We are already diverting 12 times more water from the river than is required to produce the same amount of grains and food that we are producing today. The good news is, despite all this mismanagement, we are a food surplus country.
Right.
And 90% of the water which is provided by our canal irrigation system to the farms is not dependent on your dams. It is all run of the river. Only around 10% of water is actually supplemented by dams. and you are a food surplus country and you are extremely inefficient in irrigation. So if you tweak a little bit about your irrigation practices,
things can
you
change.
can actually do away with the dams that you have, and you can still be a food surplus country.
Right. Let me come back to you. I'm going to go on to Shahid Sahab. Shahid Sahab, is it true, I mean, to somebody who's, I mean, this is news for me, certainly, you know, as far as, I mean, this is certainly very good news, but it's news for me. I'm sure that it's news for a lot of people as far as, you know, the fact that we can actually manage water, we can actually deal with the issue of water if we just manage it better, as Hassan Sahab is saying. But as far as the rivers are concerned, I mean, what we believe or the general, you know, media, the news would have us believe that the rivers are all dry anyway. So we really have, we are just at a point where we have no water. What do you agree with Hassan Sahab, that things can be managed?
To some extent, yes, that there is the mismanagement.
Right.
But I do not agree with this, that there is no shortage.
Okay.
In the last few years, I'm working with more than 93,000 farmers, and then I would like to share here how the farmers feel and face these shortages. Unfortunately, we do not see this debate as serious as we need to see within the civil society and in our parliament and where the decisions are made, because the small farmers particularly are not represented in the parliament.
Right.
So the large farmers, they do face these shortages, but years maybe after the small farmers start facing that, because they have resources, they can get more water diverted to their farms, and they can also exploit underground water.
Right.
So, Dr. Hassan, this year I was in the cotton growing areas just a couple of days ago.
Right.
And the shortages of water has affected our cotton sowing.
Yes, I agree.
I talked to the farmers and say, what are the canal closure time, and it did happen suddenly that you are not getting water for your cotton sowing, or there is any change. They said there used to be canal closures, but there used to be some sort of a regular schedule for that.
Right.
These days we do not see any schedule, and next day we find that there is no water in the canal.
Right.
So that affected their cotton sowing. But
think
what
that
point that Dr. Hassan?
Do you think that the schedule itself is the reason that, I mean, it gives the people who are managing the water there?
No. It's happening just because of they are facing more shortages from the river to the canals, and
Shahid Sahab, I'll tell you from personal experience that if you go to somebody who has, for example, 250, 300 acres of land in southern Punjab, it's not a small land holding, it's not a small farmer, goes to the person who's managing, it's usually the SC or, you know, whoever is managing the water, they'll say that, you know, less water is coming to us, you know, to use their words, piche se, the water coming, it's not enough. And then can you call them to get them to divert the water? I mean, I'm saying in a very layman,
when I say divert,
the farmer sees it
when
as
I
that.
say water diverted,
Right.
I do not mean that they can divert from the running canal.
Okay.
It's a distribution of water
That
they do get lopsided.
But where does this come from?
Just one example from the areas near Lahore.
Right. Okay.
Just less than 30 miles from Lahore, there is about 40,000 farmers didn't get a single drop of water since late 70s.
Okay.
And they are paying for that water. Whenever they try to stop paying, then our rate of the government is challenged, and then they go in and arrest them. So where is that water going?
So does that brings us back to what Hassan Sahab was saying about water management?
So water management, and then I talked to the Secretary of Irrigation at that time,
Right.
and then he said, give me the power for 2 hours and I will get that water to those farmers. That means there is some general governance issue, right from the top to
the bottom.
somewhere.
Right.
If a secretary is feeling helpless,
Right.
we have had a video to documentary to show him. He said, please stop it. I have a better one to show you where I can pinpoint who is doing it.
Okay.
And then those farmers invited Minister of Punjab Agriculture way back in 80s, and they arranged that event in the canal that was supposed to serve water to those to their fields.
Right.
And they told Minister, sir, you are sitting in the water that we are using and paying to the minister. So this is one aspect.
Right.
Second,
I'll have to come back to you. I have to go to Gulfaraz Sahab. Gulfaraz Sahab, you've been very patient, but do you agree generally that the water itself is being mismanaged, and it really just boils down to managing the water better so that it is given to equally and distributed as it's needed to, for our crops, for our agriculture?
Mahrukh, I'm very happy that you have two hands-on water experts here who have a better understanding, rather feel of it. What Dr. Hassan said makes a lot of sense.
Right.
He qualified his statement that the amount of water which is currently available for irrigation,
Right.
if we were able to improve our water usage, bring in the modern irrigation technology,
Right.
and control the waste of water, that amount of water is enough for irrigation today.
Right.
Tomorrow we will need more. But if we did not improve our water management, if we did not bring in the modern water saving technologies where the crops are, take for example, just one example.
Okay.
Even if we do flood irrigation, if you do fine laser based leveling of the irrigated area, the water requirement even through flood irrigation goes down by to 50%, and the crop yield is more because water goes evenly.
Right.
So from that point, but if we did not do that, then we are facing
But
serious
isn't it true that the
water
government was
crisis.
giving out, a lot of initiatives as far as drip
No, let me
irrigation
come
is
to
concerned?
that. Agriculture is a fundamental vocation,
Right.
food security, engagement of people.
Right.
It hasn't been given that kind of attention that it needs and
Right.
it seeks.
Right.
If you say that 70% of your population is engaged in that, then have you given the kind of importance and attention that it needs?
Right.
No, it hasn't been. If you really start from the very beginning, I like to say, if you go back to prehistory and when the settlement started, this settlement took place only along the water channels, rivers. And the life can be sustained only as long as water is accessible and available to people. We didn't get this kind of importance. We barely, last 4 months, we got the first federal policy framework for water.
Right. So we've been very late.
What you need to, and for example, even if it's come late, we should need to know, turn that policy framework into national plan of actions, provincial plan of actions,
Right.
local government plan of actions at district level, tehsil level, and at union level.
But this,
I
I mean,
tell
this
you-
policy would have us believe that all the provinces are on board.
I'm
as
just
far
saying
as
that what should be done now, enough time, enough resources have been wasted. Our subsurface water is also going down very fast. That will put a serious question mark on the sustainability of drinking water, because most of the countryside takes subsurface water for drinking.
Right.
And our water storage, 2 dams, these 2 dams were not built proactively by government of Pakistan.
Right.
They were part of the Indus Water Treaty implementation.
Right. Gulfraz Sahab, I want to come to the
No,
dams
I'm
issue
just coming.
separately.
So the point I'm saying is that we haven't managed the water. We haven't given the serious attention it deserves ever since. It's one of the largest resources, serving the largest section of population, needs the largest management attention of the country, and that hasn't happened.
Right. I will, let me come. Hassan Sahab, so what do we do from this point on?
Okay.
What are some of the measures you think we should take, like I said, as soon as possible?
Okay, the first and the foremost measure that we need to take is we need to have a transformed thinking.
Okay.
We need a paradigm shift in our thinking. So far, we have been using water to run agriculture economy,
Right.
and that's the only meaning of water economy in our country. But now we should not be using water for our economy, but we should be actually creating a water economy.
Okay.
You know, there's a difference between the two things.
Can you explain what the difference is?
The difference is when you say we are using water for the economy, then you will say, okay, I have industry, I will give this much water, I have domestic sector, I will give this much water, I have irrigation sector, I will give this much water, and this is the economy of agriculture, industry, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Now, I look at it from a completely different angle. I say, okay, we have 145 million acre feet of water available average every year. How much money I can pump into my economy against every cubic meter or every million acre feet of water? And that is the concept of water economy. Now, for that, you don't have to take water out of the river every time. For example, there are various elements of water economy, like agriculture is one. Everyone very clearly understands it. There is one which some people very clearly understand, some people think it's not possible, that's river navigation.
Okay.
Another very strong element of water economy. Although we are not using it to its potential, but it is one of the very strong. Then there is intrinsic value of water. Now, what is intrinsic value of water? Like you have that small little lake in near Skardu, Kachura Lake. What you are doing there? You are not taking water out of that lake. It just comes there, does its natural cycle, and but just because that water is there,
Right.
you are using the beauty of that water and you are building an economy around it.
Right.
It's tourism economy, it's local economy, and so many things. So
So
now
you
you
think
look.
it can be saved, that water, we can use it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, this is just that the water exists and you do the business. And if the water doesn't exist, you can't do the business. You are not touching the water. So that's intrinsic value. Now, we have to be smart that we have very long rivers. 3,000 plus miles of rivers are running through our landscape. Now, it's a lot of points for intrinsic value. How many intrinsic value projects we have conceived other than the ones which have just come up accidentally?
Right.
Then you have this again 3,000 miles of navigable rivers. How much navigation we are doing and how much money we are pumping through navigation into our system. You have again 3,000 miles of project. How much you are doing by doing the ecotourism? We have just focused a very, very narrow focus that we will take this water out of the river and spread it on the ground, and that's our water economy. We have actually misunderstood and diminished the potential that we have. I tell you, if we have a water policy which gives us a vision
Right.
of integrating the elements of water economy into our flowing river systems.
You think that our present water policy doesn't do that?
No, our present water policy does not even have a vision statement, let alone a vision.
Okay.
So, it's
So
a
it
fragmented policy. It has conflicting clauses within itself. I've been through that policy. It's not very impressive.
Right. Let me get Shahid Saab's opinion on that. Shahid Saab, do you agree that the policy itself needs work?
I think I agree with Dr. Hassan that policies are not really
The policy is not effective,
comprehensive, particularly water policy in many aspects. Dr. Hassan has raised many issues because I deal more with the rural and agricultural issues.
Right.
I would like to bring
Yes, please,
some
please.
more issues around that. We say Pakistan is an agricultural country, the food security is very important. Even it's more important than the national security, because national security is also linked to the food
Right,
security.
it depends on the food security.
If you look at the budgets, that's an economist I would like to see first.
Right.
Since the second 5-year plan, the allocation to the agriculture sector is just dropping like this.
Right.
We are complaining about the water. We have the largest irrigation system, canal irrigation system, and we do not have adequate resources for its maintenance even.
But itself, the
Just
Hassan
one
Saab was
minute.
saying
Just
that the
the
system
next-
itself is outdated also.
Yeah, the next very important issue is the system was designed for 60% in crop intensity.
Okay.
That we will not even bring 100% of land under crops. We are using it for 200% almost cropping intensity. And we are facing shortage, but we insist that we will continue to grow the crops that require more and more water to produce per unit of the area. We have not done any research.
So you're saying that we need to
what
move
kind of-
towards
so-
crops
no, no,
that
no,
require
no,
less
no.
water.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We
Right.
do not have adequate research done in the country. What should be the crop mix so that we have more area under the crops that require
Take
less
less
water,
water,
so that we can manage our water. We have in Africa they are growing some fiber crops like sisal that they can grow with couple of rains a year. And we have a vast area that we can put under these kind of crops, and we have another cotton like economy around those kind of different natural fibers. So, we are not thinking out of the box. We are insisting that we will continue with this flood irrigation, and then even if we have double the water that we are having now flowing into our rivers and canals, if we will continue to mismanage like this, we will always be complaining.
What about drip irrigation? Do you think it will make a difference?
Drip irrigation is one of the techniques. Until we change the cropping patterns, and we have more productivity per drop of water, and we have more value from one drop of water that we can produce within agriculture. And it's possible. It's not even in Africa people are doing it.
But I understand that the government is giving some initiatives as far as drip
That
irrigation was concerned.
is the issue. If we keep doing these things on ad hoc basis, we have this subsidy and then that subsidy without having a comprehensive plan where we will be 10 years down the road, and then as Dr. Gulfraz mentioned, the local action plans and then district action plans, we will continue to suffer these kind of changes. It's good that Chief Justice has announced the construction of a dam.
Right.
People are responding well, but I would again beg to say that we have to have a very comprehensive plan. Dams on one side, crops on the other side, maintenance of the system we need to look at, and then for each area good plans how to save water from one crop and then use to the others.
Gulfaraz Saab, you know what Shahid Saab is saying is certainly a very comprehensive way of dealing with the issue. But isn't it a very long-term solution? What's the, you know, is there a quick solution to this, to dealing with this problem?
Well, the
From
point
getting
is that,
water to the, at least, you know, getting it to the agriculture.
We talked about that this was the very first water framework. I
Right.
don't even call it policy, because the first thinking frameworks, good that the provinces have cleared it, and therefore now we can build upon it.
Well, at least you all agree that the policy itself is not very comprehensive.
It's a good starting point. We wasted time. Had this policy been there 40 years before, we would have been that much ahead. And now, as I said, the policies are essentially a set of directions.
Okay.
These have to be transformed into plans of action
So they can be
at
built
all
upon,
levels.
right?
And therefore, until you make plans of action, until you allocate resources to carry out those plans of action, then the difference would not come about on the ground.
Right.
I just want to highlight here 1910, 1920s, 1930s. If you picked up any prestigious international technical journal, it would always carry an article by Punjab Irrigation System on the research and indication on the infrastructure. So there was a time that some innovative work went on in this part of the world, and that's what Shahid Sahab said, the largest irrigation system we have.
Right.
But that's it. After that, we stopped it. And you talked about drip irrigation, you know, particularly for orchard agriculture, where trees,
Right.
their drip irrigation is highly effective because it saves 90% of water and 10% water goes straight into the roots where the trees beg.
Right.
You talk about the spray irrigation, and that's how the Israelis are turning the total desert into oasis. That too is very economical in water, and that is for crop irrigation. As far as the flood irrigation is concerned, unless we make a parallel effort of leveling the whole Punjab and Sindh and irrigated part of Balochistan and KP plan, undertake fine laser leveling, and therefore you have to start taking those actions that would conserve water
Immediately,
and
you're saying we need to start.
increase the yield.
What
But
about conserving water? I mean,
I just want to give one example
right.
across the border. When the Indians in the 1970s, 80s, they were facing a food security threat, food shortage. And the population being that high,
Right.
they were to make every kind of effort. So one of the things, they said, let's create food baskets. And one of the food baskets they selected was East Punjab. And if you now go by road, cross over from West Punjab, Pakistan into East Punjab, India, suddenly you see that all crops are much better, more height, better health, better yield.
Okay.
And there, the government of India incentivized the farmers that you will get free electricity to draw as much of underground water through your two wells as is needed. So, although it was wasteful, perhaps in aquifer water, but it did become their food basket.
But we certainly can't do that with free
please,
electricity.
Please,
The kind
I'm
of-
not saying that.
Right.
I'm not saying do what they did.
You're saying,
If there is a need, then you have to devise an action according to your need, which suits you.
okay.
But something has to be done. And as far as Dr. Hassan is concerned, I think once again there is a greater hype, but that hype, if we did do nothing,
It's
is
going to-
actually turning
Right.
into
So things will
a
get
great
alarming
challenge.
if they're not right now.
Yeah.
But Hassan Saab, as far as conservation of water is concerned, as far as educating people about conservation of water is concerned, I was sitting with Shahid Saab earlier, and we were talking about rainwater and how that can be used to actually deal with some percentage of the water shortage. How do we go about that? I think that even normal as us lay people, laymen, we are not very equipped with, we're not dealing with it in an educated manner, conserving water. How do we do that?
Okay, when we talk about water conservation, we have to look at the bigger pie. Now, your biggest pie is irrigation sector, which consumes about 95% of your water.
Okay.
So the biggest focus of conservation should be in irrigation. Well, that doesn't mean that we should not conserve in the cities. Now, there is a problem in the cities. Karachi faces water shortages.
Right.
Again, not because water is short, management is short.
But Hassan Saab,
Similar-
let me just
yes.
interrupt you. As far as, okay, let's talk about Islamabad, for example.
Okay.
In Islamabad is the only planned city, as Shahid Saab was talking to me, as far as planning is concerned. But, we have a severe shortage, what, 1 month, 2 months of,
Yes,
of the
2
year,
months,
and then 2 months, and then we forget about it for the rest of the year.
Yes.
So it's not really just Karachi, it's Islamabad, it's,
Yes,
probably
any
Lahore.
urban environment.
Right.
Yes.
So what do we do?
Okay. Now, particularly about Islamabad, how much rain do you receive every year? It's about 3.5 billion cubic meters that falls on the twin cities of Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And if you want to provide water to its citizens at the international standards of 40 gallons per person per day, all you need is 0.1 billion cubic meters of water.
Okay.
It's not even 1/10. And if you project your population to 2120, 100 years from now, all you need is about 0.15 to 0.2, and you get 3.5. Now,
So how do we do it?
the thing, it is very simple. But have you ever heard anyone talking about it? That this is the opportunity that we have. You know, rainwater, until it touches the ground, it is the clean drinking water. So are we so dumb that we just let it go into Nala Lay and wash away?
Which is what is effectively happening.
And
can't
you
deny
know,
it.
if you go around the world, you know, the world has already done it. We don't have to invent a new science. We don't even have to do research. All we have to pick up certain designs, certain systems, certain tools, and just implement into your places. You know, this system is called water-sensitive urban design.
Okay.
In Europe, they call it low-impact design, and in North America, they have a different word for it, but essentially the system is the same. What it does, it captures rainwater and diverts it into the repositories where it could be taken for drinking. And the biggest and the most popular repository in this system is your groundwater. So they capture the rainwater from a house, from a road, from a street, from a park, from a woodland, and just directs it down into your aquifer. Now, Rawalpindi, Islamabad, they have been gifted a beautiful, wonderful, sustainable type of an aquifer underneath by nature. So we don't have to build the aquifer.
Okay.
And then how the water infiltrates into that aquifer, we know how to pump it out. Almost every house in Islamabad has a pump. They know how to pump it out.
Right.
The only problem is they don't know how to pump it in. And they don't even have to do that because nature can do it for them. Water just seeps down through gravity, and that force is there. And all you need to do is just be smart enough, don't be dumb, just be smart enough to manage 10 to 20% of that water infiltrating into your aquifer. If that process starts today, you will never have water problem ever in this part of the world. Now that system, that water sensitive urban design, on the face of it, it looks like a beautification plan. You just find out that the green belts are appearing beside the roads. There are lakes and ponds in the area. There are woodlands with special vegetation. There are parks with lakes. There are communities with lakes. So, you know, those lakes not just add beauty, they are actually infiltration ponds. Okay. The streets which have green belts running between them, those green belts are not just vegetation and landscaping, that the rainwater drains into that thing, then it flows into the vegetation cleans it, filters it, and there is a recharge mechanism which is installed underneath that trench. And that recharge mechanism, it's not a rocket science. It's all a trench filled with gravel.
Okay.
So
Right,
it's a very cheap thing, but if you
But
start
has to
doing
be-
it
so
today.
it comes about, it's about education, educating the people, educating the masses about doing this, which I think is an integral part of this plan. I mean, if we have to conserve water, we need to tell people how to do it, whether it involves doing nothing or, like you're saying, it's a little bit of effort. Shahid Sahab, you mentioned Libya earlier. What, I mean, we can take a page from their book also?
Yeah, I think that is not something to follow because they pumped all sweet water from here and there, whatever they got, and then put it into a surface dam.
Right.
Huge investment. They have had the oil money,
Right.
but the thinking behind that, provide sweet water equally distributed equally within the country, was a beautiful thought.
Right.
What I am trying to say here is that we need to take our water resources very seriously. Dr. Hassan made a very good point of recharging our underground water. Luckily, in almost every settled village of Punjab, at least I know more about Punjab, they used to have at least 2 ponds in the village where the rainwater would go. And for the last few decades, 3 decades, maybe 2 to 3 decades, almost all of those ponds have disappeared.
Right.
People have just kabza group,
Eliminated
and
them,
that's sort of thing. Second, we have even if we have underground water, we are messing it up like anything. Our industry is putting their sort of polluted sort of all water in the underground water. They are putting it into the streams. They are putting even it into the canals, sewage water into the canals. Or Islamabad water sewage is we are putting into the nalas. So we are polluting our surface water. We are polluting our even underground water.
Right.
And I'm feeling we are, because we can see, we are a bit feeling more alarmed on our surface water resources. We are doing much worse on our underground resources. In almost every district now, you cannot pump and drink the water.
Because
it's no more drinkable in the villages.
Because it's polluted.
So it's polluted. The village I grew up, we have had the most sort of drinkable, clean water. And now when I go to the village, almost every household bringing water from somewhere, from canal. And that canal is also getting sewage from somewhere. And the canals going through the cities, we are putting the sewage pipes into that. That's kind of planning our policy makers and planners are doing. So we need to go back to the local district level EIAs, environmental impact assessments, so that we can make good plans. Rural people are now making latrines, dumping everything into the groundwater.
Right.
So they are further exacerbating the situation. So we have to make the local action plans, district plans, provincial plans, national plans, and then people
Union Council.
Yes.
That is the most important level for water.
I mean, there's so many plans. Do you think that we are going to make so many plans?
These plans are concurrent at all levels.
Right.
I think this is a very interesting discussion on water because it's knowledge based. Both these individuals are.
Unfortunately, I'm running out of time. Right.
Quickly talking about, one is the runoff water, the glacier water, the river water. You need to have enough storage capacity. That needs to be taken care of. Second is your groundwater aquifer, and you need to recharge it.
Right.
As we remove the vegetation, the runoff, most of the water that falls on the ground runs off and doesn't get enough resident time to recharge the aquifers. Take the example of Balochistan. Balochistan is arid. It is no vegetation, and it is almost dry the whole year. But when the rain falls, a phenomena called flash floods. So all that water goes waste. I can assure you this thing that there are ways and structures to increase the resident time of that flash flood water so that it can penetrate and percolate in the ground. Some of them are check dams. They are not total dams, but check dams. Some of them are subsurface weirs where you put a kind of concrete wall down below that the water running from air then is forced to go deeper, and the moment the streams go deeper, they start recharging. So we should be able to, and an example I want to give is of Morocco. The southern part of Morocco, which is again very arid, almost desert-like conditions. If you walk the general area, every 100 yards or so, you are surprised to see an underground water tank. So they have studied whichever way the surface water flows, where it goes, there is a small tank there beneath the ground. So this is how they're able to trap water. Right. The moment you become conscious of the fact, the moment you become action oriented, the moment you allocate your management and your financial resources, all these things are possible.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for, I had a very informative panel. Thank you for being with us, Hassan Abbas Sab. Thank you for your time, Shahid Zia Sab, Gulfaraz Sab, always a pleasure. As far as our water crisis is concerned, there are a lot of measures that can be taken. Certainly things, one good thing that I learned as far as I'm concerned is that things are not as bad as they seem they appear. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to take action as of now. The policy itself can be used as a framework that can be built upon, that can be worked upon. Further than that, we also need to educate people as far as conserving water, conserving rainwater is concerned, which itself can deal with a huge part of the problem. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.